Hey neighbor, let's talk about growing watermelons, specifically growing watermelons in your backyard vegetable garden. Now, whether you're an experienced watermelon grower or you just maybe want to try some type of watermelon or melon for the very first time, I want to talk to you today and show you a way we're doing it this year that's a little bit different, that really lends itself well to people that's got smaller gardens, but yet you want to enjoy those melons. Well, I'm particularly fond of watermelons. I've loved watermelons all my life. You probably don't know anybody that loves a watermelon no more than no Hoss does. But other people like other type of melons. Here's my regular seeded watermelons that I grew this year, and I'm gonna be planting me a big spot of those, and I'll show you a little later where I'm gonna put them at. Now I'm gonna show you this right here. This is a seedless watermelon right here that I've grown this year, and you can tell there I didn't get 100% germination, but I got pretty good germination there, and that is what I consider a success for me, because seedless watermelons are extremely hard to get up and get growing from plants. If you didn't know that, then there's some good information you've learned today. The average person cannot get seedless watermelons up and growing. And look, I've had my struggles with them as well. There's some tricks there. Some friends of mine had to tell me just to get even this percentage, I got it right here. So we don't do a lot of seedless watermelons on account of that, because I feel like the average home gardener just can't pull off the seedless watermelons. If you've done it, hey, kudos to you, but otherwise you can see the difference here. These seeded type watermelons are easy peasy. So enough about watermelons for the time being. We're gonna be talking about melons. Now, cantaloupe is in the melon family, and Mama Hoss always every year has wanted me to grow her some cantaloupes, and I've kind of pushed it off because I ain't particularly fond of cantaloupes. I know that's a little bit selfish, but just hadn't really put the effort in to do it for. But this year is a little bit different. I'm growing Mama Hoss a spot of cantaloupes. Now, the one I chose for her this year is a new one for us called Tasty Bites. If you're not familiar with Tasty Bites, it is a smaller type cantaloupe, and it has more of a tropical flavor to it than maybe some of the rest of them does. And I feel like that may be one I might like as well. So we're going to grow this one, a very small melon, but it comes highly recommended to us. And we planted these on 227, and here it is 321. So less than a month, we grew these things from seed to nice transplants. They're ready to be set out today. Look there, see that root system right there? That's exactly where you want it at. Not too root bound, but rooted in enough so we can get them out of these trays. Now you see this tray right here? This is a styrofoam tray, and this is real similar to the black prop tech trays we sell. I don't remember if I picked this one up on the side of the road or it was in some plants that maybe we got on from some trials or whatever. My point is, look here, I grow in what I got. I'm probably just as deadgum tired as most of you are out there. I got a warehouse full of new trays, but I like using these older trays as much as I can to keep from being wasteful. I just cannot stand to throw something away I got a use for. Probably one of my downsides is I maybe hoard up a little too much. But these trays right here, even a styrofoam tray right here can last a long time. Around here in my neck of the woods, you can find these on the side of the road sometimes where they fell off the trailer. But anyhow, my point is, these things will grow in our black prop tech trays just as good as they do these styrofoam trays. I just use what I got on hand, not to be wasteful and go in there and get some new ones to put out. Now what I do pretty much on all my plants, when I get ready to get them out of these trays, I'll go get me, this is a little pecan sprig right here, and I try to get one about the right size there. I'll trim it down with a knife, cut it off, and I like to go through there and just push them up to release them. Sometimes they don't pull real good, and to keep from wasting these plants, I'll just go through there and just kind of push them up a little bit, and that helps them come out a little bit better. I've used a pencil before, but most time I'm out here in the garden and I just go break me something off and whittle it down real quick. Now, whether you direct seed or you grow your transplants, you're looking at about a 2 weeks difference there. Your transplants are going to mature out about 2 weeks quicker than your direct seeded, but you can do either one. Here in the deep south, we always like to transplant our melons because it gives us a head start, and we can have our melons mature out before the 4th of July. Now, around the 4th of July, we get so much heat, it starts burning our plants up. That's the reason we love to get these melons off before then and put them in the greenhouse growing our transplant. Allows us to get that 2 week head start. But we direct seeded before too, and it's fine. Just make sure you do it early enough, or if you live up north, make sure you do it early enough so you can get that plant mature off before you have some weather that's going to cause stress to your plant. Now, the problems with melons growing in the garden is twofold. disease problems, and we'll cover that in another video. But weed control. Weed control is hard on melons because they're a vining type plant. Once we plant them, we can work the wheel hoe in there and keep them weed free pretty good. But once they start vining out, it becomes problematic because we can't get in there with any equipment to work in between the rows, and we got those vines everywhere that we don't want to disturb. So that's a huge issue with melons in the backyard vegetable garden. There are some pre-emergent chemicals you can use to keep the weeds down, but that doesn't work for most home gardeners because you got to put it out right or you get damage to your plant. It has to be watered in. There's all kind of issues there, but that is a possibility that would work. It's one that I normally don't use. But what I'm going to show you today is a new strategy I'm doing this year that I think is perfect for you guys that want to grow you a small patch of melons in your backyard. So what we have here, folks, is what we call our lazy garden system. Now this is a weed fabric that we come out with last year, and this is a big block. We have them in two different sizes. This is a 15 by 30. We also have it in a 15 by 20. But it is a big rectangle block of weed fabric, but the key is it already has the X's and the slots put into the fabric, so we don't have to go in there and worry about cutting those. If you ever mess with this fabric, you know if you start cutting on it, it frays real bad. And all these X's and slots are burnt so that it keeps it from fraying. And it's perfect because they're already laid out on a grid so that we don't have to worry about that. And let's look here at the 15 by 30. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the X's. And these are 2 feet apart. They're on 2 foot by 2 foot. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slits. So there's a lot you can plant in this right here. And we did this last year, growing a lot of stuff in the fall, these cool weather crops. Works perfect for that. And we utilized the whole thing in every row. But with melons, we don't want to plant that close, 2 foot on 2 foot, because that crowds too much. So I got to thinking, man, this is perfect for melons because it's going to keep my weed pressure down. And look here, this system comes with a plug and play irrigation system that we're going to finish up installing in just a minute. So this is perfect for melons, especially if somebody wants to grow a small patch. I'm growing Mama Hoss a 15 by 30 up here in my big garden of these cantaloupes, these tasty bites. So what I did is I come in here a couple of days ago, and this took me about 30 minutes, and I did it all by myself. I took my irrigation lines, and instead of putting it on every row like I normally would do, I come in here and laid it out on every other row because I'm only going to plant these melons on every other row, which is 4 feet apart, which is about perfect. Now I'm going to plant them 2 foot in line because that's what I got, but I think I'll still be fine there. But I'm going to do that on 4 foot because these vines really spread out. I got to give them room to grow. So I only run my irrigation on the lines that I'm going to plant. But you know what the great thing is? I put those other lines and stuff back up. After I get through with my melons, I can pull this up. It's simply just stake down with these stakes right here. I can pull this up, work my soles, lay it back down, and I can put my other lines down and I can plant my fall garden. So what I did before I put this down is I got my compost, you know, my good compost that we like to use. I put me a layer of compost all over this area here, about 1 inch thick. Then I come back with my complete organic and I kind of scattered this out here, and I took my tiller and I worked all that in so I got a good seed bed. Then I went in there and I laid my lines down. Now in the past, what I've done is put these irrigation lines right here on top of the fabric. That works fine. It's actually just a little bit easier to do, but the fabric sometimes puddles that water. Although water will go through that fabric, it doesn't go through it real quick. So this year I'm trying something different. I'm putting my lines underneath the fabric. So what I did is I just laid my fabric out where the rows I wanted to plant, and I took my little staples right here and I just measured off, and I went ahead and placed my irrigation tubing on the lines that I wanted to plant and staple them down. So here in just a minute, what we're going to do is we're going to hook all this up. So although I got 15 rows here that I could plant, I'm only going to use 7. So I've run irrigation underneath the 7 rows. All right, so the tools I'm going to be using, or supplies I'm going to be using to finish up my irrigation right here, is my hole punch here. And that hole punch comes with the kit, and you just put it in there and twist it. I'll show you in a minute how we like to use that. Now this here, folks, is what we call a transfer barb. I want you to look right there. There's a hole that goes all the way through this right here. This is what we use to hook the tubing up to the main line there. And once we get our hole punched in, this will just plug right in. Now this is my figure 8. This is what I would use to put on the end of my main line to cut off or to stop my main line there. I'm gonna fold it around and put it in this. This is gonna plug off my main line so that I shoot my water through my tubing. And this, folks, right here is goof plugs. It looks real similar to my transfer barbs. You can see there. The key difference is this one doesn't have a hole that goes all the way through. It's got a hole on one end, but it doesn't have a hole on the other end. This is what we put on the end of our tubing to stop up the end of the tubing so the water don't continue to come out. All right, so I've already hooked up my 20 PSI filter regulator combo. What this does, folks, is it filters out any trash that may stop up my tubing, and this right here reduces the pressure down to 20 PSI. Now the one we use on our drip tape is a 12 PSI, but the one for this drip tubing, you need to use a 20 PSI. This right here is what we call a swivel. This is where my water hose hooks up to the filter regulator combo. Now one thing that some people have a problem with is these things leaking. But this swivel right here will not leak if you do two things. First of all, make sure you got a water hose washer in there. But second of all, it has to be real tight. So let's get it right here. And the reason it has to be real tight is if it's not tight, it's going to leak in there. But the tighter you put it, the more it pulls on each one there, and it makes that seal there. So you may have to put your little wrench on there or something other if you have a problem with it leaking. Most of the time, you can snug it down enough so it doesn't leak. But if you have a leak in there, simply just tighten it down. Maybe put a wrench on this one and a wrench on this. Get it really tight, and that'll take care of that leak. All right, I also like to take my staples right here and staple my main line in so it don't wobble around on me. You'll see as I go down through there, I'm gonna make sure it's stapled in there so it stays in place. All right, so when we're hooking our drip tubing up, you see that right there, that swollen part of that of the tubing there? That's where the actual emitter is at. We don't want to hook up in that. So if we actually ended up right in the middle of that, we'd either go back or forward right there to get out from that emitter there to be able to hook up to our transfer barb. So I know I need my transfer barb right here. I'm gonna take my little tool there, put it where I need it, and I'm just gonna twist it right there, and it is gonna punch right through. Sometimes you can hear it pop, sometimes you can't. Then I take my transfer barb, stick in there. All right, there it goes. It finally popped in there. You see there? Then I just take it, I stick it on my tubing, work it a little bit right there, and it'll work up on there. All right, that's the way you want to install it right there. So I've got my tubing right there. I got it stapled in. Let's get down to the next one. All right, so I got all my transfer barbs in place. Took just a minute. Now I'm gonna go down through here and take my staples and secure my main line in place so it doesn't move around on me. Now at this point is where I like to flush my lines out. Just in case we got some dirt in them lines there, I'm gonna flush it out. So I got everything hooked up, but I don't have ends on anything. So I'm gonna turn my water on. The first thing I'm gonna flush out is my mainline tubing. When I get my mainline tubing flushed out, I'm gonna install the figure 8. Then it's gonna push water through my tube and I'm gonna flush my tubing out. All right, I got my main line stopped up there, plugged off. I'm gonna shoot water through my tubing. Heck, it don't take long, 15, 20, 30 seconds. Flush through them, flush that clean water through them. If there's any dirt in there, we flush it out the ends. Now we're gonna go through our goof plugs and stop up our ends on our tubing. All right, so here it is, exactly where it's supposed to be. I got a pin underneath there holding it in place. I'm gonna cut off my excess right there. Same thing, folks, with these with these goof plugs, you don't want to put them where the emitter is at. So if you cut on the emitter, you're gonna have problems. So you want to cut on where the regular tubing's at. See if I can get out of the shadow there where I can show you. We're gonna push that in. Just like that, we got it stopped up. All right, so we got our irrigation turned on. We don't have any leaks. Looks like it's working perfect. Got it lined up right where we're gonna plant. It's time to get these tasty bites in the soil. All right, so on one end of my lazy garden, we have these X's cut in there. Like I said, they're 2 foot apart. I'm not probably gonna plant on the first one right here. It's about a foot off the edge. I'm gonna skip over and start on about the 3 foot. It's 2 foot from the other X here. Now these X's right here, you can do either way. You can kind of fold them under like that right there. Gives you more room if you plant something bigger. Or you can just leave these X's out there and work through it. I kind of like to leave them out there when I'm working with small plants because it gives me more coverage there so I don't hurt by as much weeds coming up. My irrigation tubing's right underneath there. So I'm gonna take my little tasty bite melon there, place it in there, firm it up good, just like that right there. All right, so on the Lazy Garden kit, half of the kit has these slits in there. Now these slits was designed in there where you could plant things like carrots, mustard, things that you want to plant pretty thick there. These slits work good for that. You kind of spread them apart, plant your crop in there, it comes up and you control the weeds. Now we're gonna be able to use this for watermelons too. We're gonna do it a little bit different. So we're gonna plant one on each end of the slit there, and that'll give us 6 plants per row, just like the X's are down there. Now the good thing about this is, come fall time, I can pull this fabric up, or I can just simply remove the old vines I got, and I can come back this fall, utilize this right here for my fall garden with my carrots, my mustard, my turnips. And just like that, we got Mama Hoss's cantaloupes planted. Now this little project, all in all, probably took me a couple of hours. So you could probably complete this in an afternoon there, and I did it all by myself, so it's not that big of a deal. This plug and play irrigation system is easy peasy, anybody can do it. All right, I got her cantaloupes planted. Let's talk about my watermelon plot. So this area here is where we had raised beds for years. Well, this last year, we built Mama Hoss a potager garden with new raised beds. These were coming apart, need to be redone. So this area here, we really didn't know what to do with, but I knew I had to clean it up. So I cleaned it up and I got thinking, man, that's a perfect spot to plant my watermelons. So this spot here is about a 30 by 30, maybe just a little bit bigger. So I've got my compost in here. I'm gonna spread this out today or tomorrow. Then I'm gonna come in here with my complete organic, just like I did at the other spot, and I'm gonna broadcast that and I'm gonna work all that in. Then I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna lay me 2 15 by 30 lazy garden ones side by side, so that I have a total spot of 30 by 30. And that's gonna give me a bigger spot to grow my watermelons. This dirt here ought to be pretty fertile. I got all this compost in here. I'm gonna have my complete organic there. And I'm gonna be able to grow me a good spot of watermelons, I hope. So folks, if you're limited on space, time to get out there working in the garden, or tools that you can't get out there and keep it, maybe weeded. With these vining crops here, I think this Lazy Garden Kit's gonna give you the opportunity to grow small plots of those in areas that you really don't have to worry about the weeds as much. We got our complete organic underneath there, so we got a good starter fertilizer going. We're gonna be able to turn a valve on to water them, and plus we can take our Hoss fertilizer injector and start injecting our fertilizer through there once these plants start running. So we got all the bases covered. All we got to do is make sure we take care of those plants, keep them fed well, keep them sprayed for disease problems, keep an eye on them, and we're going to have a wonderful crop in about 2.5 to 3 months.